Hello, everybody, and welcome to Capsule Cast. I am your host, DoorGuard, with my co-host, Donut.
Hello, everyone.
It's going to be a little bit of a potentially shorter, definitely smaller cast this week. Let's just say after All-Stars and Sweepers and all that stuff, it's just been a lot going on. Obviously, if you checked into the stream last week, it was on a different day. Schedules have just been a little messy lately. I think you could agree to that, Donut.
Yep, definitely.
So just keeping it simple this week. You ready to get rolling in then to week number 10?
Let's do it.
All right, so first off, rest in peace stats. This week, we have a very special member. Certain Bojack decided to deal, he only dealt, I don't even know if he dealt 1,000 damage. He had a...
1,170, so just over 1,000.
So, yeah, he basically showed up, blinked, and the match ended, and thus he has no stats. So,
Beautiful.
if you are wondering why he dropped very hard on the tier, it's because he has no damage this week.
Yes.
All right, with that, match number 1, we had Rugrats versus Namek, looking like it was going to be a decisive victory for Rugrats, with Goten just absolutely going off and absolutely destroying Tambourine and Nail. And unfortunately for them, Nuova decided that he was not going to allow that to happen and would carry the team on his back. Now, an interesting note, Namek, in a pretty good spot in their division, decided to try out, you could argue, the term test builds. Basically, still keeping characters on the same line that they've been. So, like, Tamarind was still melee, Nuova still spam, just with a little bit of different, like, maybe a different blue or something. Like, Nuova, I think, was the first time we've ever seen him with Key +2 this season, the 2021 season. So, certainly experimental, and obviously didn't have late Piccolo, but kind of a crazy surprise. Donut, I know nobody was really expecting the Nuova Elite, but I know it was definitely a big turnaround on stream. What were your thoughts on this match?
Going into this match, I thought it'd be one of the more competitive ones of the week. Like, with the two top teams, they both made playoffs last year, and both looking very good this season as well. And as I said, it started off very well for Rugrats. Things were going well. The problem child in Goten was popping off. We loved to see it. And then things fell apart when Nuova stepped on the field and said, hey, let me start 8v2s, hit all 8v2s, go elite, and just win the match, which is fantastic for Namek, right? As on that test build as well with that blue Petard change. And if you look at Namek here in implications towards the playoff rounds, this is without Late Piccolo, right? Which is arguably the best character. So that gives them a lot of confidence onto these later weeks in these last 5 weeks to get themselves a playoff spot and have everyone else working, as well as having Late Piccolo, who we know to know elite as well, going into that playoffs. And then Rugrats, I wouldn't worry about this at all. It's obviously upsetting that you lost, and yes, Cyberman didn't do his 20k. 30k obviously you want minimal, but apart from Cyberman's performance, everyone else held the weight and then some. You had your best character arguably in Kid Trunks out, so it was there's a lot asterisks on this match, so I wouldn't worry too much for them.
Yeah, funny enough, the reason that pretty much everybody at Cyberman did over 40k was Nuova and King basically just kept like rapid tagging to each other at the end there. So
yeah.
Even though I think neither had one of them might have had like a Dendays, but they didn't really have any big healing on them for the most part. So they got a lot of healing off doing some last second tags to each other to kind of regain their composure. And King looked like he was struggling pretty hard, but still managed to deal about 46,000 sprinkling in several smug beams and such. But he's always been kind of a character that kind of sprinkles in some random bursts, though I think he didn't hit any ults even though he had Savior. Yeah, overall.
Yeah, there's one ult thrown, but he didn't hit it, so.
Yeah, especially surprising. I know Kid Trunks is the best from Rugrats, but Aurelie, obviously a very strong competitor, was also just, 48,000. While that's being, still a very good week, might be considered a little lower than maybe what you'd expect. She's usually in the 50 to 60,000 range, just due to how much of a menace she normally is. So kind of got a little hard-walled by Namek this week.
Yeah, it's just a combination of that TAD game as mentioned, right? 3-to-1 on the TAD ratio there for Namek in favor of. And then also the B2s just spammed out, right? 14 out of 16 for Namek there. And that is very impressive. That's over 87% hit rate. And when you have that on the opposing team, it's hard to win. Just as any match, right? So.
Yeah, I think the real question just is how many of those were from Nuova, because I think the
Um,
amount of burst attacks he threw out were quite high.
Yeah, half of those B2s thrown were from Nuova. So that's brutal. And those do damage. Like lots of damage.
I mean, it's brutal too, because technically it's super -1 for half the match, so
True.
I think he had indignation, so he canceled it out, but still, normally he has super +1 or key +1, so his indignation's giving him a lot more, where this time the indignation is mostly canceling out the super minus he already has. So,
Yes.
yeah, a scary time indeed when they find a new build for Nuova. You're like, well, great.
So I want to have this to worry about now. That's fun.
Well, should we get moving on to match number 2 then, or?
All right, let's do it.
So, match number 2, we had Royals versus Kaiju. Funny enough, two teams with very similar casts, or have very rotational casts, because both have a lot of Royal members on Kaiju, and there's a few members on Royals that are indeed Kaijus. So, has some fun implications there. But overall, was a pretty good match. I think the only thing that was like truly surprising is, well, for one, everybody on Royals did 50k somehow, and that Bardock just totally keeping with his seasonal. This season's just been a rough season for Bardock. Not really on any new builds, not really going too crazy. They were hoping he would just be Mr. Consistent, and he's just really been suffering. Could say, I know this is a personal note, is what happened with Buhan is I found that while having attack +2 is awesome when they're working, when they're not, the defense -1 tends to bite him, and it looks like he's been getting bit a lot by the defense -1 this season. But overall, I mean, it would be hard to say. Raditz, funny enough, having the most damage, mostly due to his own tag game. I think he tagged 2 or 3 times on his own.
2 times. Yeah, 2 times on his own.
To keep coming back in and dealing more damage, though the funny part is he easily could have had a 60 to 70,000 week if he had hit with like half the B2s he threw, because he threw a lot of B2s, and several of those were in max power mode with the he gets a super boost, I think, when he goes max power, so because he used his B1 for it, so he easily could have had a much better week.
Oh, definitely.
A little bit more things connected. But yeah, I mean, Nappa even had a 50k week, and I don't even think he hit a Kappa, which is been a rarity this season.
Yeah, he didn't throw an out, which is very bizarre from him. So a little bit of an odd week for him, and still doing his part and then some, right? So.
Yeah, I think that's been just kind of his case this season. He's not been a very big ult spammer like he was last time.
Yeah, it's not what they relied on last season, right? Him and King Vegeta last season, kind of doing those ults and tagging back and forth, and they're missing that ult game from him a little bit. At least this week they were. So hopefully he cleans that up next week and future weeks to come. I want to talk about the Royals doing a lot of work on the Clash game. They won all 4 clashes on the day, mainly due to Videl with her power, her Dragon power, and that was fantastic. Also, they threw out 24 B2s, 24 of them. That's insane. I think that's probably the highest number we've seen the entire season from a team in one match. And then they hit 16 of those. So similar situation as Namek, right? When you hit 16 B2s, it doesn't matter. That's really a lot of damage that racks up quickly. And you talked about how they all did 50,000 plus. That was due to the 4 tags from Kaiju. So you got that tag game from 3 of the members. Raditz, I think it was, what was it? Bardock and then Nappa, right? Who all tagged. So that's really good on the tag game, but you need to be able to, capitalize on the tags, and the spam from Royals, just all the healing they got from the tag just was nullified. Which is really unfortunate for them.
Yeah, for sure. Though it is surprising. I did not expect some of them. Like, I know Videl had like a good week, but I didn't know she hit over 50,000. Though when you put in that B2 perspective, when you look at the characters they have, Metacooler, Macha Vegeta, Baby Vegeta, and Videl.
Yep.
Those, and then you add in the fact that they have Slug also on the side. Most of their team is actually kind of more B2 focused. Metacooler obviously just tank, but he hits a lot of the scatterfinger shot. Since it shoots so many projectiles, it's almost impossible for it to truly miss, just not deal full
Yes.
damage. Majin Vegeta on the Super Plus 2 build, we've obviously all felt that at this point. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
Baby Vegeta also having the same boat of Metacooler of having the scatterfinger, so there's just a lot of those tend to hit. And Videl having the rush, though she technically can drop their hit rate pretty high due to the fact that she likes to do her rushes into the ground, or the 2-bar one is like a straight line, so it kind of can suffer. But yeah, overall, their team has done a very strange meta shift with the fact that people say that the current AI is much more melee focused and having no true like attack plus 1 or really attack plus 2 users being utilized right now.
True. And definitely with Majin Vegeta, we talked about how Bardock was having a very poor week this match. And that was off the back of two 13,000 B2s from Majin Vegeta, 2 big bang attack. And that just chunked him so heavily, and just really couldn't off the ground and actually fight back much when those hit. So really unfortunate, but someone has to eat the B2, and unfortunately it was Bardock.
Who, as we have said, with Defense Minus 1, meant he took more damage from it. So it did not feel good for sure. Probably, probably isn't even necessarily that he had a bad week, but when you get hit by massive B2s, just like, I mean, it'd be the same as if, like, let's say you had 17 out and he was throwing another Super Plus 2 user. Couldn't say if it's 17 having a good week or Bardock having a bad week. It's just when the B2 hits and they're squishy, they melt. So.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, overall, Royals had a pretty good week, but Kaiju, even though this was a rougher week, was definitely one where they still showed their colors and how strong they can be with fighting back. So it'll be interesting to see in these final 5 weeks where they end up at. They're definitely looking to be a strong contender for playoffs, though.
Yep. If they can keep this up, they should be in a prime position to make it.
I think Royals is kind of on the line a little bit, so they have a little more work to do. Well, shall we move on to match number 3 then?
Let's do match number 3.
So, match number 3, we had Team Muscle versus Derp. As you can see now, by looking at the screen, you can see the 1,000 damage Bojack did. That came almost entirely off the fact of Broly kind of wiping the floor and Trunks coming in and following him up. Derp came out with a pretty strong start, honestly. Vegito taking out 13, who's the number 2 in the league, which is a very good thing. Having your character take out one of the best characters and having only do half your health seemed like it would be an insane start, and even started to do some work on Broly. But seeing as how this was one of the 2 divisionals this week, they had a lot of boosts on Broly, and he was on a Super Plus 2 build, and it only took a few B2s for him to really get rolling. And he even transformed and hit an Omega Blaster, which is his ultimate in legendary form, which did 20,000. It literally did half of Salza's build, and Salza was on Defense Plus 2 Eternal. So it was just a little too much, unfortunately. And Hercule totally got just walled out by Future Trunks. Definitely, you should check out this match if you didn't. Future Trunks may have figured out the anti-present bomb tech. Somehow he ignored it while being in range of it multiple times, and it was absolute insanity. So, Donna, what do you have to add? I mean, this match was kind of crazy. It looked like it was going to be derps, like they were going to run it home after taking 13, but Muscle didn't only drag it back, but they dragged derp out of the arena.
Yeah, it was insane. And Derp held it close with all the clashes. They won all 5 of the clashes that happened, and obviously that's about what, roughly 20,000 damage, right? Depending on character. So that's really good, right? That's half a character right there. But, Hercule missed both ulti throughout. That Curse won some things. The Tad game from Muscle, they had 2 Tads to none. That changes things, right? They hit one of their ults with Broly, as you stated. So the things just didn't fall in the place that Derp needed them to. But I still think it's a fine performance. If Hercule hits one of those ultimates, he has a 30,000 week, right? And then one of the Present Bomb hits, that's 40,000, right? So it's basically 2 abilities away from having his take your man type of thing, right? And it's just really unfortunate it didn't fall in place with Hercule. But when for Dub, when one of your strongest characters, if not your strongest, has a poor week, everyone else needs to step up and then some. And some of them stepped up, like Vegito, but not enough to actually bring it home for them. Obviously, for Muscle, fantastic stuff. Need work on Bojack a little bit. That's a little slack on the numbers there, but
That's not
Future
Bojack's fault.
Yeah, I know.
There was a tag to him when there shouldn't have been.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Messed with his stats when it shouldn't have, but
Yeah.
that's just how it goes sometimes.
Mhm.
Unfortunately for him, though.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it was just like one Hercule ult, and he had like a 35k week, because that definitely would have done a large chunk.
And maybe actually ended one of the characters, right? Chance may have died quickly after that, right? Or maybe Broly or anyone could have, right? After taking that type of damage. So just unfortunate for them. But Muscle looking really strong. They had a little bit of a slump early in the season, but they really brought it back over the course of the main season. That's very impressive, definitely.
Yeah, they decided that they can't get any easy wins, so they're going to do it the hard way, which now makes it look like they're getting easy wins. So not sure how that worked, but it has done wonders
the magic.
for them. So, yeah, do you have any other comments you want to add on our match number 3 here?
Nope.
All right, let's just get sliding into match number 4. This is your match with Android and Resurrected Warriors. Now, we had talked a lot beforehand. Pretty much everybody knows at this point that they're a 6-0, or they were 9-0 going in. When you see you're going up against Resurrected Warriors, you kind of can just assume you're going to lose, because even their worst lineup is better than most people's best lineups. And we had talked about how gonna just try some stuff, see what works out, take the loss in the chin, and just move on. And yeah, unsurprisingly, the loss did indeed happen, though your team had a pretty decent fight back for a little bit there. It certainly seemed like 17 might turn the tables, and 16, even though it was still not a great performance by him, at least was a good enough start that it seemed like, something to work with. But overall, just, really had Super 17 just was too happy being in the water, and same was 19, and they don't think they dodged very many B2s while they were swimming around, so kind of a rough week. Not much to say in terms of what Resurrect Warriors did there. You could say that Nuova's Elite came off and Vegeta not getting Elite.
Yeah.
But
we denied an Elite performance. We'll take it. It's really just unfortunate, and but credit to RW, right? They had a fantastic lineup. They had a fantastic builds for everyone, and they're doing what they have to, right? You get your opponent, you make your build, you say, hey, go out there and fight and win, right? And that's out of your hands, right? And that's the same with every team. So just take what's in front of them and make the most of it, and you can't fault them for that. For my camp over here, Super 17, 19, but that's not it. I mean, to explain how bad for people who didn't actually watch the match, Super 17 was on the field for like an average of like 130 seconds over the course of the main season so far. At least that's what's in stats right now. And for about 30 seconds, he basically sat there and did no damage to N Vegeta. And when you stay there for like a third of your time out there and doing no damage, it's gonna be a bad time in your stats. So we can't have that happen, right? And I mean, any team can't have that happen. So that kind of tells the summary of how the match went, right? Especially with that N Vegeta performance. 19 and Super 17 just kind of sat there and took, a lot of volleys to the face, and that was unfortunate for me.
Yeah, and just a hard team for 19. I know you didn't necessarily want to take him, but there's kind of not really. It was a good. As we said, it was a great time to do a bench for someone like Cell, since even like there's just such a high chance of losing right now to Resurrected Warriors that it's just better to use a sub that you need to get, or someone that's better to get out of the way right now.
Yeah.
Throw him into the fire, because if you lose, then it just feels bad. You could have subbed him. So I think strategically was done very well, but obviously could have hoped for at least a closer match. I can agree to that feeling.
Yeah, we lost by 6 bars, sits in a third bar type of thing. But yeah, Cell's definitely a strategic bench. We have him for the division next week. We have him for, Cold, Namek, Muscle that's coming up in the season, right? So all be very useful for Cell to be in on those matches.
For
So
those that are worried or maybe don't know about Resurrected Warriors who only watch the episodes and this podcast, uh, Resurrected Warriors has a free agent that's doing very well and a loan that's doing very well, and both of those are auto-removed at the end of the season. So if you're saying, man, I don't, Resurrected Warriors are too good, well, just keep in mind that they will not have the same team next season, and one of the only reasons they got the FA they got was due to them losing a lot last season. So a lot of things will change. Just want to make sure that's public knowledge here. It's probably been talked about a few times, especially if you're in the Discord, you'd know this. But I just want to make sure it's open to those who only watch the videos on the YouTube because, yeah, this is not like, oh, they're just broken. They've done a lot of good this season, and a lot of it's come from, unfortunately, last season being a very rough season for them. So this is kind of the fruits of their labor, as Donut said earlier.
Yeah, you can't fault them at all. Just you take what you're given, right? That's the hand that's dealt.
Yeah, shall we get moving on to match number 5?
Yep, that's it for me on this one.
Yeah, I figured. So, match number 5, the second divisional of the week, had Cold Kingdom and Sentai, and unfortunately, it had you could say it was doomed from the start. Sentai struggled or had a mistake when it came down to the benching. So with free agents coming in and the way that they take each other's benches and stuff, the ruling being the first season we're doing it again, very confusing. And unfortunately, they got kind of messed up on the order for it, and due to that, they unfortunately lost a very important build swap opportunity this week. So Jace got replaced with Ginyu, and Ginyu's build was the same build as Birder. They both had Eternal Life, so they removed it from him, which means they had a character with only 3 Pataras, unfortunately. And yeah, so say what you will, kind of a rough start. Overall, I think it didn't even start bad. Birder had King Cold's number for a good chunk and forced him to tag out to come do his damage kind of later, and Birder was also tagging out a good bit. And Ginyu really didn't do much, but I mean, this was a divisional, and they had Woman in and Adult Gohan, and it seemed like Adult Gohan's definitely been good, and Woman was their MVP last season. So there was still a lot of hope for them to have a good match this week, but yeah, it was a pretty dominating victory by Cold. 100% Frieza is, I mean, he really should be in the rest in peace stats column because he really only came out and did like the one thing, unfortunately for him. And yeah, so kind of a rough week. It was definitely a frustrating week for Sentai. On the one major bright note is that they're not out of playoffs just yet. They can certainly catch up to Derp, and if they beat Derp, they can certainly if they beat Derp in their divisional and stay tied with them, they can certainly push Derp out and still get in. So they're not out of it this season. This was certainly a rough loss, a frustrating loss, but they are still looking quite good. And on Cold's side, obviously they have a lot of characters looking quite great. King Cold having a very excellent week. Cooler not having to do too much, but still getting his job done. Same with Mecha Frieza, who's probably the character you'd expect to have the worst time here. And then 100% Frieza, we didn't quite get to see in his full glory, but doing his job as well to close out the match. So Cold pretty securely holding on to a playoff spot at this point.
Definitely. And to be fair, to his credit, Hula did a almost 55,000 performance without his patent Savior. And Savior is like a staple for him, right? So for him not to have it, well, that opened up a new possible. Hey, we don't need Savior on him. Maybe we put something else on him, right? Maybe throw, I don't know, Fighting Spear or something. Oh, he has Spear. I don't know, Serious or anything that it can have, right? RFS if you want to put him as a starter, right? So it opens up a little bit more build path if they are open to it. But Savior is obviously a very, very strong batar, and for him to to do well without it is just credit to the character overall, right? Obviously unfortunate for Sentai. And not much else to say on that, right? You can look at Burden and say, hey, Burden's still popping off, still throwing out B2, still landing B2, still doing clashes, still winning clashes, doing everything you want him to. Just unfortunate that the other dominoes didn't fall in the right place for them this week. But as Dora said, not out of it. Still some hope left, so you want to go into next week with, headstrong, right? So, hey, we can win this. Maybe if you want to boost for it, right? If you're saying we need a win right now, we have to have it. Maybe you find a boost or two, right? Um, but no, I'm just trying to see what they do, both in the regular season as well as in the off season if they fall into the testing area.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot open still for this season. There's still a lot available to be able to get out there and grab. And even if they start doing some more testing builds, as we saw with Namek, you never know. Maybe that spurs on an elite performance out of nowhere. So
Yeah,
just got to be ready. With that, shall we get moving on to match number 6?
let's do it.
So match number 6 was kind of a rough match for me, though probably has one of the highlights of the seasons in a funny way, not in a good way. But Krillin just absolutely going off in the start. Spopovich doing what he normally does, 30,000, fallen quite flat, and unfortunately Apul was not able to hold it up. Gohan Boo did kill Krillin. He got stunned, was left on the ground, and he full charged a Kamehameha while standing right above him and incinerated his bones, which was cool and all, but then he proceeded to not deal any damage afterwards. So the overkill was basically all he got. And while Krillin was a problem, then N Goku was a big problem, and then Mid Goku only had to hit the 1v2 to really end it with his Super Plus 2 build. So overall, very rough times for the Bujins camp. It was a very, very strong win by Earth Defenders. It's why they are always seen as a very strong team of they have a very good group. You just never know how they're going to do, and they didn't even have to have Mid Vegeta hit the field. So they are definitely still in a very big fighting spot for playoffs. Certainly lots of rebuilding needing to be done on Bujins, though.
Yeah, I follow up, and yeah, Earth Defenders showing why they are deemed one of the upper mid tiers or mid upper tier, right? Of the league, right? Just with this performance, you see the versatility of any one of them to pop off, right? Even Krillin can pop off, despite what the show may tell you. And for Bujins, you all still have a strong team, of course, right? Kid Buu wasn't in, right? And that's arguably your strongest member. And if there's anything to hold out hope on this, is that your tag game was very, very strong, right? You had 3 tags on today. And if you can kind of channel that type of style, that Kaiju style, if you will, maybe you can utilize that and find some wins down the line and secure playoffs, and then make a run in playoffs, right?
Yeah, having won 2 of the divisionals, playoffs are probably still secured as long as we don't go on a massive losing streak, albeit Budokai is certainly fighting for that losing streak spot for some reason. But they are certainly still very much in it as well. Lots of the divisions pretty much have full open potential, except for the one Resurrected Warriors is in which they're not necessarily guaranteed the bye yet. On technicality, but they are, or they might have on the win that they got being 10-0 now, but they're definitely at least guaranteed playoffs. There's basically no way to knock them out of playoffs. So otherwise, every team's still kind of fighting around for it. I guess South Kai technically, Cold and there's not really a way for Cold and Muscle to both get knocked out.
Yeah, that's true.
So. Yeah, not really a lot that happened this match. It kind of happened pretty quick, so there's not really a lot to talk about. It was very frustrating and gritting my teeth while watching it and commentating it, but it's just kind of how it is, and would have been the same if Donut was commentating his match. It was a very rough match to go through.
Yep. Credit ED though. They came with a game plan. They executed. Can't fault them for that.
Yeah, very strong team. Knew it was going to be a rough one from the get-go. Just hoping to be a little closer. All right, well, moving on to match number 7.
All right.
We have Cinema versus Hybrids, and another very rough week for Cinema. I know they are certainly in a rough section right now trying to get things figured out. Ultimate Gohan started off against Gogeta. Two very strong characters in the melee department. Really expecting a kind of brawl, and it was basically just Ultimate Gohan taking out Gogeta. Then Super Janemba coming in, and everybody goes, oh, well, that's just another very strong melee character getting taken out with relative ease, also by Ultimate Gohan, who finally, I think he tagged. I don't even think he went down. I think he tagged at one bar. Just, super rough. Basically made the match look almost unwinnable for Cinema. And Turles certainly put in a shift, but just couldn't even keep up with the two before him. And Fasha tried to carry the team on her back. Did a very valiant effort. 78,760 is a very, very good week, but unfortunately the rest of the team did under 25,000 for the most part. So it just kind of was not enough. So unfortunately for Cinema, they're still very much in playoff contention, but not feeling too confident going into this next match. I think they have had about 3 losses in a row now, so they are not too happy about it. Whereas Hybrids they're needing to get all the wins they can, as don't I know there's a super competitive time here in North Kai, so every win is very big.
Yes, definitely. And Hybrids finally having some separation with Budokai and Androids with this win here. Very, very nice for them to get off out of that tie there. And really, it was all Ultimate Gohan, right? Doing the 80,000 plus, getting a tag off, really just solidifying, say, hey, here we are, we don't win this, don't care what you do, right? And everyone else just follow suit from there. Future had a decent performance, so trying the same thing. Then Kid, well, everyone else did, but I don't know if his Kid had a closing, I think, but still, but they did what they had to do, and you can't really fault them for that at all. And if we're looking at for the tag game, they had 2 tags, which is great, right? They hit one of the 2 clashes, which is all good. They had lots of B2s fired. They hit most of them. Everything just pretty solid performance overall from Hybrids. For Cinema, on the other hand, the stats show a decent performance. They lost the tag battle, which is obviously a very understated thing that happens in matches, right? That can be anywhere from 2,000 health to 20,000 health, basically, right? So it's very versatile on how much that impacts the actual match. But in these sorts of high tier matches, or mid tier upper tier matches, where I view Cinema and Hybrids, those 5,000 health, 10,000 health will make or break that match, right? For Cinema, Fasha is obviously the saving grace here, and Gogeta and Turles and Janemba, very inconsistent over the course of the season. We've seen Gogeta have insane performances, make it all the way into the Olympics there during the event we had mid-season. Janemba, we know, can pop off, at least he has in testing. And Turles has also done very well on super build or key build and even defense builds. But the inconsistency is kind of hurting them in these later stages of the season right now. And that's really unfortunate for them, right? So hopefully they can get things back on track going into this upcoming divisional in a few weeks here and kind of squeak their way into playoffs.
I will say, and luckily for us, we obviously have some little extra information, and this is coming out after builds, that Cinema are doing some fun stuff this weekend. Not necessarily like breaking their character stuff, but like trying out some stuff, kind of like Namek did, where it's on the same path of whether they normally do damage, but just trying to optimize it a little more this week. So we'll see how that turns out. And I think second form freeze is also probably getting swapped out. We'll see. I think that's mostly confirmed, but you never know. This is recorded pre-builds coming out, but we also get some extra information because we're both coaches, so we get to talk around and talk people on different things going on. So it'll be interesting to see how they turn it around this season. So, and obviously Hybrids, quite scary popping off late, especially with the rest of North Kai losing this week.
Yep, that's a very big week for them, right? Where else seems to be going on a downward trend, Hybrids been going on an upwards trend, and that's always good for the team, right? On the upwards. So hopefully they can ride that wave into playoffs for them, right?
Yep. Yeah, I'm a little worried going up against them, especially we'll have
That's
to
your
get
opponent.
more into that in predictions, but
Yes.
certainly Ultimate Gohan's been having a good time lately.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to the final match, match 8. You may have heard, slight spoiler, but Budokai lost.
Yep.
They honestly looked like they had a pretty easy win in their bucket, though the start of the match was probably one of the most boring goddamn matches I've seen in a long time. Shin Shenron basically spammed nearly 2 of Budokai characters to death. Nam
Yep.
at first, because Nam decided that on a melee build he would not do melee, and tried to outspam Shin Shenron, who was on a defense spam build, and just killed him. And then who came in next? I think it was a combination of Tao and Kid Goku, just trying to fight him off and finally taking him out, but he did his damage to them. And yeah, just kind of rough though. GT Goku, we did get to see the 2 Gokus go against each other, both kit versions of Kid Goku, though they didn't do too very much, so it was kind of boring as well. And finally, they somehow, don't know how, came down to a Pilaf versus 18 fight, and it's, even though Pilaf had a 1 health bar advantage, it looked like 18 might have it, just overall very strong character. We haven't seen Pilaf much this season. In last season, all we saw of Pilaf was on Royals, so a little different coach, so a little different, build going in. And yeah, Pilaf managed to hit enough Gigante Rock throws to take 18 out and had enough, near dodges and stuff of Infinity Bolts and such to actually get away and steal the win for GT. Which is good for GT. I think they're on the small win streak, where Budokai still struggling with a little bit of a loss streak, and though they are. Neither team is out of playoffs by a long shot. They both very much, especially Budokai with the divisional this week, have a massive opportunity to try to jump into the ladder, while both teams just really need any wins they can get. So great for GT, rough for Budokai. However, they are certainly still, as you said, no team's out of it yet. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do from here. Certainly seemed like a blessing for you, though, Donut, seeing as how going up against Budokai, you guys also lost. Pretty much whenever you lose, you want everybody else in your Kai to lose, so at least nothing changes.
Yes. Yeah, it was his sigh of relief, right? At least in the Androids department here. After our losing to RW, then Budokai is keeping even in record with us going into this divisional, which will just kind of heightens the stakes for the divisional, right? Just that much more. And really, GT, I kind of discredited them coming into the match. I thought Budokai would be able to take it with the likes of Kid and 18 and General Tao. I thought those 3 for sure could pull enough weight to kind of carry them over the finish line. But Shenron just kind of taking him to town. It was really impressive to see. And then GT Goku, they've been up and down the entire season, really showcasing his stuff this week. And what a time to have it happen, right? When you're down and out on what appears to be down and out towards these final weeks, saying, hey, we need to win here, and they delivered, right? Yeah, just for reference here, Shenron had 10 out of 12 B2s hit. That's a lot of spam going on. Now, of course, a lot was like the trap shooter or the super trap shooter, right?
Super trap shooter.
But he had a few like blazing, or was it Blazing Storm? Whatever that one is.
He hit like 3 or 4 Blazing Storms, which do a pretty massive chunk of damage.
Yeah, so those add up quickly, right? Especially in people like Kid, who has that innate defense minus, right? So anything that you do to him is just going to be that much more amplified. And towards the end, I expected 18 to actually just destroy Pilaf, but that did not happen. And it's really concerning, both for RW and for Budokai, because 18 could go back to RW next season, right? As we talked about earlier in the cast. So that's something to really keep an eye out, saying, hey, is this a one-off thing, or is this a real concern that 18 can't handle Pilaf? Because historically, I would take 18 every time, no questions asked. But Pilaf saying, not so fast, my friend, and showing us up. So very good from GT. Nothing too much to worry out for Budokai. Some hiccups, but you can correct that this week going into divisional. Maybe you find a win there, or down the line a little bit later on in the weeks, and kind of squeak your way into the playoffs that way. So we'll be interested in seeing what happens going forward with that too.
Yeah, I think the only major area of concern is Nom. Obviously, just
Yeah.
not doing melee, which makes the attack +2, defense -1 quite scary, seeing as how that makes him take more damage. So,
Yeah. So maybe move attack 1 on there. I don't know.
well,
Right?
attack 1's on Kid Goku, who's using it
Yeah.
really well. So
Yeah. It's weird, right? It's
it's a
hard.
struggle. It's just
Yep.
they've been using, I think, Gohan AI on him, and I know they did a lot of testing. So it'll be interesting to see if they. If they actually go through with holding on or if they make any changes. You never know. It's good just saying it's a 1 week thing, but you don't know.
Maybe they say, hey, we don't need Nom, we'll put back in Cyborg Tao, right? That could be a play, right? Next week is the another FA swap possibility, so.
Yep. All right. Well, should we move on to the next segment here?
Yes, let's do it.
So, moving on, we have the power rankings. No clue what they are. Don't understand how they work. The formula no longer creates a solution that I understand. And seeing as how I did not make it, I cannot do anything about it. All I can say is that teams have moved up and down. Some teams have moved down despite having better scores than teams they're under. I don't understand. Donut, any comments?
Biggest things that stand out to me is GT moving up by 6 spots after beating Budokai, which is really interesting. Dub moving down to 13th, which I feel they're probably more towards the middle of the pack. I don't view them that far down unless they just view that the Hercule performance is that much concerning. So there's that. Other than that, everything seems to be on line with my thoughts right now. Defenders hold really up there. RW obviously top of league. Muscle making gains up into the top 5. I can argue that Namek may be up there as well. I mean, that top 5. But yeah, everything else seems about right. My Androids, poor Androids, down to 14th. That's sad. But Cinema 16th is really shocking as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it has to do with perceived power levels of teams because Earth Defenders defeating Budokai, or Earth Defenders defeating Bujins pushed them up higher than Cold Kingdom, and I know, and Cold Kingdom obviously has a better ratio than them right now, and I know they beat a rough Sentai, but had they won normally, would it still be the same? It's kind of a weird.
Yeah, it's all opinionated, right? So there's no exact formula. It's all just whatever the creators feel in that moment, right? But it's just a fun little thing, just to see where they think they stand, where you stand. So.
Yep. So let's get moving on to the next segment here, which is a few segments combined into one. No, Kid Buu did not get near 80K. He wasn't in this week, so I don't understand the GIF either. But overall, tier list, not too much has moved around. The one on the right, I think, is for the overall season, and the one on the left is for this last week.
The one on the right, I believe, was week 6 through 10. So that's why 16's still up there. He had the elite week in week 6, so that's why he's up there. Otherwise, he'd be down there with, basically everyone else, right? Like Raccoon and the basically, or a pool around that area. And the one on the left is just from the previous week here. So, still a few shocking things, right? Just historically, right? Obviously, the one on the right, I think, has a little more weight than the one on the left, so that's what I'm talking about more so. So, people like the Demon King, that one being so far down is really shocking still, right? He's so inconsistent. Was weird, right? Tapion.
Well, he also hasn't been in a lot.
It's true. It has been true. So there's a little bit of a asterisk there, right? Yeah. Other than that, nothing really too much stands out. You have things like Hercule down there and towards that mid-lower tier. Kind of want to see him go back up there. Even the Rayleigh's under that 40K on this tier list. So just a little bit surprising things that good. But other than that, on top end, nothing that really catches my eye that much, apart from maybe Shenron. That way, and Zarbon maybe. Yeah, Zarbon has a silently very impressive season thus far. So hopefully continue that into the playoffs if they do make it, because I believe they will. So.
Yeah, tier list another somewhat opinionated because it is a lot of times just a snapshot of the week, so it's like not necessarily always vindictive of how characters are truly doing. So it's kind of weird, but overall, it's fun to see where people are stacking up and kind of
Definitely.
what other characters you might be frustrated with are actually not doing as bad as you thought.
Yeah.
So otherwise, we have the prediction segment. Are you ready, Donut, to do some predictions?
Hell yeah, best putt cast right
All right,
here.
well, thank you guys for checking out the cast this week. We'll catch you next week. So, starting off, match number 1, Hybrids versus Boojins, a divisional. Obviously, to a degree, this is kind of for the bye. Depending on how things go, it could come down to a tie between, and these are probably the two teams at this current moment that are most likely to be fighting for the bye. So, I obviously can throw it at my team. I know what's going on. I know Kid Boo's come back in. I'm using all my Zenny.
Sure, makes sense.
Last season, you could say, oh, the Boojins never use Zenny, but this is a new season, and we've been using Zenny quite religiously. So,
yeah. This one I know back and forth on. If Boojins win this, right, they're almost guaranteed a bye week, very close to guaranteed. However, I think we're gonna lean Hybrids on this one. I think they had some more upward trend, a little bit more momentum.
for those wondering why Donuts got muted midway through, couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I think Ultimate's doing, popping off. Sword Trunks is doing very well. Team Gohan is up and down, but tends to be more on the up, at least from what I recall. So I'm gonna give it to them on the home map.
Alright, so got it split. Fortunately, might be how it is a lot for the East, since we only had the ability to get the two of us today. So, moving on to the next match, we have Derp versus Namek. This one's, funny enough, with how the season's gone, extremely volatile. Though I think I have to give it to Namek because I feel like late Piccolo come back in, and I don't know. They might not have Nuova in, but having one or the other, and both are just absolutely on fire right now. And while you could say Tambourine and Nail were struggling, they were also on different builds than they've been for most of the season to try to see how they would do. So, and we've seen, while Nail's been struggling this season, Tambourine's been having a pretty decent season, keeping his 40Ks, and Derp also looking pretty good, but Todoria's been struggling a lot. Now Hercule's starting to struggle a little bit, so there's a lot of cracks showing, unfortunately, for Derp when they were looking to be having a pretty solid season. But I think I'm going to give the edge to Namek here.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to mimic that and say Namek as well. Late Piccolo coming in is just a much greater boost to a team than Dodoria is, in my opinion, or Kui if they decide to do the FA swap route. And Hercule, as stated, having a little bit of a poor week. Hopefully brings it back, but even so, I think Nuova will be able to match the spam very well. And I don't know if there's anyone who can handle late Piccolo 1 versus 1. Maybe Vegito, but that's still I lean towards late Piccolo on that one. So I'm giving it to Namek.
So we got 2-0 for Namek. However, Derp has had, as we said, a very good season, so you just can't count him out. Not at all, especially this season. So moving on to match number 3, we have Resurrected Warriors versus Kaiju. Obviously, me and Donut pretty safe in just saying Resurrected Warriors, but I think it's more interesting to talk about why Kaiju has a chance to usurp them. However, I think we could pretty obviously say 2-0 Resurrected Warriors if we wanted the safe bet. But yeah, I think Kaiju, I mean, they're away, so they're not going to have apes, but that might not be a bad thing, honestly.
Yeah.
I forget who's coming back in for them.
Early Goku for Resurrected Warriors, and then Kaiju has Scouter, Vegeta.
Scouter. And Scouter's been pretty good, and I know they tried, I think they had Eternal Life on Bardock this week, but
I believe something like that.
We know Vegeta has been very good with Eternal Life, and we saw in the Olympics he is super aggressive with the AI they found for him. So I don't know, if it were to come down to it, I don't know if Kaiju will go in with their best lineup, knowing it's a rough time. However, you don't know. Nappas, get some Kappas going, those deal a lot. Vegeta has to come in, because he can't be subbed out 2 weeks in a row, based on rules. So Scouter is a very, very powerful character that can certainly do a lot. So we'll have to see But he certainly could be a potential turning point because we've seen Vegetas go absolutely ham. Pretty much every Vegeta has gone ham at some point this season. So if I had to give a reason for why Kaiju might be able to turn it around, it might be the tag game and Scouter going off.
I'm going to echo with Resident Warriors winning the match. For Kaiju, in my defense, for them, tag game as mentioned, Master Roshi could be an X factor after mid strike. Mirage Patara could come into play as a boost or as a regular just in the build type of thing. There's a lot of volleys on the enemy team there, and I think Bardock could have a huge match this week. That's my takeaways.
Yeah, I mean, we could very easily see Bardock out as well, same as how you guys had Cell out, just
Good
as
point.
a
Yep.
keeping it safe kind of thing. But yeah, otherwise, moving on to match number 4, we have Cold and Royals. It is what you would say is a very even kind of match. Both teams really looking pretty decent lately. Um, So it's really hard to say if, like just off the top of my head, who would win. Though I think I might give it to Cold, honestly. I think they have a little more build variety, so it can come out and do a little bit more variety of offense up against Resurrected Warriors, where Royals, as I previously stated, are a little more focused on spam. So if like Zarbon's got the rush down going, because he'll be coming back in, and we've seen Attack +2 Master Throw just shred people. Obviously,
Yep.
King Cold just very good at rushing down people. 100% Frieza can basically mirror Majin Vegeta, and there's a chance that it just comes down to which one of them just literally one-shots the other. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun match, I hope, but I think I'm gonna give the slight edge to Cold for now.
Yeah, in this one, I view them as very similar teams in the sense of style. And they both like to spam, right? One spams ultimates, one spams B2s, right? And for in that debate, I feel that the ults would win out, despite keeping it close to the B2s. I think the versatility as well with the X Factor Zarbon coming in could be a big thing if he just keeps in the face, let's say like Metacooler, right? And just keeps on grabbing him down, 5,000 grabs per pop, right? And that adds up quickly. I give it Cold maybe by a bar, maybe 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think just overall it's just gonna be very fun. And this is like a pseudo.
Okay.
This might be a potential like later divisional, but overall, just this is gonna be a fun match. I think these are two very well pitted teams coming against each other right now. So moving on to match 5, we have Rugrats and GT. GT coming up win, Rugrats a loss. However, you could argue Rugrats somewhat won their match. It was a very big turnaround at the last second, but yeah, both coming in with a lot to get here and both very much fighting for their spots. However, I think Rugrats is doing a bit better. So it'll be quite fun to watch. Though I think I'm going to have to give the edge to Rugrats. Kid Trunks coming back in. Goten obviously having a great week. Cyberman was the one that struggled, and Cyberman has not been having a bad season. So 1 week of struggling is not that crazy. So if he gets back up to his normal, it's going to be quite rough. And Cell Jr. obviously having a lot better season compared to last season. So he could certainly, they just have a lot of good characters coming in. Where GT, not to say they have anybody bad, but Pilaf mostly untested for them, and also not very many appearances this season. So, X Factor, you could say he might be the reason they win it again.
Yeah.
And Shin obviously doing very well, but we've seen that they've kind of stemmed away from how they've been building GT Goku due to the fact that all testing he did was spam ults, and all season is he's not ulted. So it's weird. It's a very weird one. But I think I would have to give the slight edge to Rugrats here.
Fair enough. But here, yeah, Super Saiyan Vegeta coming back in for GT, and then Kid Trunks on the Rugrats side. I feel the inconsistency of GT, where we don't know which GT Goku and which Pilaf, and even which Python will show up. I think that gives me a little bit too much worry and too much cause for concern. I'm going to lean towards Rugrats on this one. I think they have a much more consistent lineup, as much more higher ceiling lineup, I think, as well as higher floor.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. I think both teams are coming into a spot where they're pretty even, and funny enough, depending on how the lineups go, with very similar size and stature.
Mhm.
So, with that, shall we move on to match number 6 here?
Let's do this.
Match 6, we have Sentai versus Cinema. Both teams came off crushing defeats, so
Mhm.
they're also in a very similar boat right now. It's going to be interesting. I'm pretty sure we're going to see new builds out of both teams. Um, and this is a free FA bench swap week, so there is a chance we see that. I don't know if it's very likely, but at the same time, it's hard to say, seeing as how Saiyaman on Sentai is a character they see highly of, and I think Garlic Jr. is basically a must come off now for Cinema to try to secure a playoff spot. So I don't know. This is a hard one. I want Sentai to get the win, but I feel like Cinema is going to have a little bit more punching power to start off with.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because on one hand, I look at, oh, Buddha pops off. Oh, Adult Gohan pops off. Oh, and you look at all these pieces and say, hey, this could be a thing. This could come together, right? Then you see, oh, an 8,000 performance from Sailor Woman last week. That's really not great. Then you say the same thing for Cinema, saying, oh, you have Fasha, you have Gogeta, but wait, Gogeta's up and down. Tillis, up and down. Janemba, up and down. And it's like, if I knew which iteration of the team comes in before I made my prediction, this would be much easier, right? I want to say that Adult Gohan pops off and goes nearly or elite this week. I'm going to lean towards Sentai.
Yeah, I mean, he is shown to be extremely versatile in Bataras you can grab from attack to defense to super. So you just don't know what we're going to see at Adult Gohan. So he certainly could be quite, intrinsic in their victory here if they get it. So yeah, 1-1 though. This is going to be a fun match to watch because I think both teams are going to just start throwing stuff out there to try to secure a playoff spot at this point.
Yep, see what sticks, right? Maybe he doesn't stick for this match, but has promise and say, hey, next season, this could be the build, right?
Yep.
With a little bit more tweaking.
So, moving on to match number 7, the second divisional of the week. A big space between divisionals this week. Androids and Budokai. Obviously, both teams coming in. I think Budokai technically is the Zenny lead based on the fact that they just have more losses. However, they have a lot more characters that have been a little funky. Obviously, they're going to have their, I forget who they had out, but they're going to have a pretty decent lineup going in. It's also with this final, 5 weeks, they can basically, if they planned it out by a 5-week period, have their strongest lineup. Same with androids. Obviously, we both know something interesting going on, and I'll let you spoil it when you get to your spot. But I think I'm gonna have to give the edge to you guys on androids. Cell coming back in, and while this isn't like his most pop-off season, he's still been a 60k character just about. So he certainly held his own quite well. On top of the fact that the rest of your squad's just, well, obviously having their struggles, still doing enough to keep the team floating and doing well. There's just been some unlucky losses here, especially due to a random tag that maybe put 19 at the end. But yeah, I think you guys have a slight edge coming in because I know a secret, and I think you're going to tell us.
Yeah. So before I go to that, Budokai does have Yamcha coming in, and they do have the Zenny lead 7-9. 9 is in their favor, right? But we do have ideas to combat that. They're a very clash-heavy team. With the likes of Yamcha, even 18 and Cybertal and Mustang, everyone has run a Clash Battalion of some point this season, I believe. Maybe not Nam, but everyone else. So we are doing some boosts with Power Rage to kind of combat that, as well as we're going to have an FA swap. Super 17 is going to be benched out for early Piccolo, so the first time we'll see early Piccolo this season. So Namek, take notes. Let's see what happens, right? And RW, right? And I think early Piccolo is on the build that we have him in this week will be a key build, key and Clash mainly. It has done promising stuff in testing, so we are hopeful. We just need something decent. We don't need any pop-up. We just need something decent and solid, right? So we haven't had much of that this season. So obviously I'm going to lean towards my side here for androids. Cell 17, gonna be in for sure. Early Piccolo could be that X factor, maybe just into a strong start. Takes his man type of thing, or he gets close to it for someone else to clean up real quick. I'm feeling confident going into this. Cautiously optimistic, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, there's just like a lot that could go right and wrong with that. Like you don't know.
Mhm.
However, you do know that if he even has a bad time, you've had a couple. The character he's coming in for has just had a bad season, so
Mhm.
it's like there's not really a reason not to. And yeah, based on the build that I know that you guys are doing for him, but I won't reveal here just because there's no
Yeah.
fucking reason to. He's gonna be fun. He should do some work at the very least, and he has a pretty decent kit to do some work, so it'll be fun. Overall, I mean, divisional should be a very good match nonetheless. And
Mhm.
for the final match of the week, we have Muscle versus ED, both coming off very strong wins, which is
Oof.
actually going to make this match even more fun.
Yes,
Um,
this will be a fun match.
I think there's TN coming in for ED, which is obviously a very strong character,
Hmm.
and Raccoon, I believe, coming in for
Yeah, the
Muscle, who's obviously one of their weaker characters.
yeah,
So
but both defense.
yeah, both defensive. However, TN's shown to be a little more consistent with his defensive. So
Definitely.
yeah, it's gonna be a fun match. I'm gonna give the advantage to ED. I think a lot of why Muscle dominated was they had very well done boosts and very smartly done boosts, but they obviously are. I would not imagine them boosting here. They have not done any. Only I think only Namek's boosted outside of a divisional, so I wouldn't bet on Muscle doing it here. Though, I mean, this is going to be a slobber knocker to end the week off for sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of a good one to end the week off outside of a
Mhm.
divisional. So it should be good. But I think I'm going to give the slight edge to Edie. I think not just because of how I lost, but just like I think they just
Mhm.
overall don't really have a big weak link.
Mhm.
And Raccoon coming in, while certainly not a bad character, he's certainly a subpar outside of some standout performances. So it's going to be kind of rough. So
Yeah.
we will see. You never know. He has the kit to do a lot of damage. He certainly could have a good week. It's always hard to say. But yeah, I'm gonna give the edge to ED here.
Fair enough. For me, I'm looking at like Mid Vegeta versus Android 13 could be a really fun matchup, this back and forth. And then Mid versus Broly and Trunks could be really fun, just spamming back and forth. What loses me for Muscle is the Tien and Raccoon area, right? I go to Tien every day of the week, twice on Sundays, and that's where ED kind of takes it from there, I think. So I'm gonna give a slight edge to ED in this match.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we said, it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be an intense one, and depending on how it goes, we could get pretty much characters of all the same, like almost build, going up against each other, which could make it an even more fun match. So we'll have to wait to see, and I really hope it turns out to be as much of a slobber knocker as we're predicting it to be.
Yes, hopefully.
Well, do you have any final things to say for the week here, Dunnett?
Nope, I think I'm good.
All right, well, as always, please remember to check out the description. It'll have links to the website, which has all of the information, link to Twitter, which has updates. It'll have a link to the Discord, where you can, of course, talk with us, join a team, become part of the discussion. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments, and there's a suggestion spot on the Discord. So lots available. The stream will be happening back at normal time this Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. CDT. So it should be good. I hope to see you guys there. And I will be hosting, so you'll get to hear me there.
Hey, exciting.
Yeah, I'll have a fun guest this week. It's going to be a fun
Ooh.
one, hopefully.
Yes,
So, yeah, with that, thank you guys for watching. And
thank
we will
you.
catch you guys next time.
Bye.